Trae. Come on, it's the day with Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
Trae.
Come on, come on.
With Trae.
Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with Trae.
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation, to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peace that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Welcome everyone to the Day with Trae, a critical conversation special. Joining me for this special is Heru TchaasAmen. We're going to be having a critical conversation in the vein of the very late and beloved Dr. Maxine Mimms, someone who was beloved in this region and beyond for her wisdom, and really so many of us in community were blessed by a space that she really curated called Critical Conversations. And today, Heru and I are going to have a critical conversation to reintroduce this concept into community. So I'm so glad that he is joining me here today. Please welcome Heru TchaasAmen. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
You know, diviner and diviner every day.
Well, I'm so glad that you could join me for this. This is a special we want to do really on the premise of the importance of community coming together for these critical conversations. Right now in our lives, we're dealing with a lot of critical issues. I want to hand it over to you because there are some things that we're all kind of collectively experiencing right now. And we wanted to create this space to really open up that dialogue and that conversation. What are some of those areas that you really see as, important for what this collective experience is?
Wow, there's so many areas of contention, so many areas of stress and loss, so many areas of need in our community. I don't know if I can put them all in one statement. We all are experiencing challenges in life. I'll say it like that. We all are. And it's running through our community. It's running through our families. It's running through our schools. And recently, not too long ago, I was at a conference. And we asked some young men to share what their biggest struggle was. And it was black men. And these black men, this one young man stood up, he spoke up, and he says, I'm just concerned about really just being alive tomorrow, making it through the day, right? And I began to realize in that moment how important it was for him to be able to say that in a space where there were other brothers there to take care of him, right? He's a young brother. And it really began to remind me of conversations that I'd sat in the past. I got to sit with Dr. Mimms a lot, right? And just lay across the foot of her bed, sit at her feet, literally, at times. And the way I was really introduced to community, I know, you know the story, but one of the main ways that I was introduced in community was, at one of these conversations with her where she introduced me to community. And she was hosting a space, at L.E.M.S Bookstore, where our community members could just air out whatever it was, whatever struggle, whatever problem, whatever conflict, whatever help they needed. All of those things were just shared openly. And there wasn't judgment there, right? There was okay, if I have resources, I'll help you find what you need. If I have skill set that you need, I'll help support you with that skill set. If you need to just have a way to talk and share and get things off of your chest, it's open here. Oftentimes, as people, I don't even want to specify what type, as people, we walk around and we hold hurt inside. And we don't air it out, we don't talk. We don't have a real conversation with one another. And, so we don't have a counselor, right? And when I grew up I'm from the South, my grandpa used to tell me that there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, right? And so to have people that have experiences and have expertise and have wisdom, in a space that they can communicate with people who are in need of those items, I think is very important for our community.
Yeah. as we were talking about this, I was reflecting on the, experiences I got to have at Critical Conversations. And you're absolutely right around everything you said. But really, I too experienced, like, without a space like this, where do we do that, right? I find that oftentimes it is in microcosms, right? Or maybe microcosmic, where it happens in a one-on-one conversation, maybe happens within families sometimes not, right? But it's smaller subsets of it. What I really appreciated about Critical Conversations was the ability to hear from other people and to also offer love in that space. The community love offering was so pure and real there. And of course that stemmed from Dr. Mimms herself, right? The way that she ran it. I got introduced to Critical Conversations as I was working in community. And when COVID happened, I was able to assist Dr. Mimms in moving it to a digital platform. So, hosting Zoom meetings and ensuring that, everyone was invited, creating that kind of calendar for everyone, and just trying to digitize what she had created with alongside others, what community created in Critical Conversations. And the void is real right now. The void of it is real. So expressing conflict, problems, but also being in the space where you're getting, resources and you're hearing about news and events was a major part of that. You were able to experience that not only in person, but in the digital space too. Where can we kind of take the conversation? Because there's so much need, as you said in the beginning.
That's what was so beautiful to me about Critical Conversations is that there was no real agenda, right? It's like wherever people were, they can come in and talk about it. And you mentioned something that I appreciate. When we were in the COVID period, we moved from a public place into a digital place. And my goal, is to move through the digital place and then to get back into a space where we're together. So coming from this digital platform here and working our way back to a face-to-face conversation. That's why I thought it was so important here. And I think that we begin with, a real conversation. That's why I wanted to have a conversation between you and I as a beginning of this conversation, a real critical conversation that we move from here to, sharing space with others. When I think about where do we start, we start opening our mouths and talking, right? But only when we're breathing out of our mouth, not when we're breathing in. But we begin to talk and to share. Another point that you made about, focusing on the conversations that we have, with maybe one other in private. Those are great conversations and important to have too. Those are in fact critical conversations, and crucial conversations for that matter. What can be problematic or challenging around some of those conversations that we have with others is that we get very selective with who we have those conversations with. And so we might have a conversation with someone who sees the world exactly as we see it, and so we don't see or hear anyone contradicting that, right? And saying, maybe you're wrong today, right? Maybe that's not where you need to be. We might get somebody who is our cheerleader that says, yeah, you should, cuss that out, right? Like that kind of energy. I have friends like that. If I call them up and say, hey, I was angry with XYZ, when are we fighting XYZ? I need you to talk me off the ledge, not, jump with me over the ledge. I don't need lemmings, right? So that kind of energy, but making sure that we can have, a sounding board. And then, if we spread the conversation around, also there's conflict resolution that happens, there's healing that happens. I remember some of those calls and some of those conversations where people were literally going through grief together, right? And coming out after the end of the conversation, laughing and joking. There was, sharing of art, right? And talent, upcoming events, and like you said, news from around the world as well. Sometimes people would drop in and let us know what was going on across the globe, which was really important. And it was a space that was safe. So I think maybe we start there. Just it's a safe space to have a conversation and share what you're going through without any judgment so that you can get support you need.
Yeah. Well, I think the environment of creating no judgment is so important. And so many people were introduced to the space in some way, shape, or form through connection with Dr. Mimms.
Yeah.
And, what I recognized is that building that space where people can really express themselves and know they won't be judged, and know the next time you see them in community, you're not thinking, oh yeah, they were struggling that last time we had that talk. I never felt that out of critical conversations, never felt that. And the importance of building that environment, it starts brick by brick. I want to talk a bit about how we build that environment, because I think through experience, you have folks who are like, man, I've been burnt, by community before, and they just blank community, right? It could be multiple community members, it could be community organizations, it could be different community initiatives, right? But this notion of like, man, I've been burnt, I don't know if I have it in me to like come to a space like that again. And so I see it as brick by brick. It's experience by experience, right? These conversations were held every third Friday of the month.
Right.
So they were monthly conversations. What does it look like to really build that space where folks can feel there's no judgment?
I work with a group of people, let me make sure I said it correctly. I work with a group of people that have been well known to introduce people to job opportunities by word of mouth, right? We don't have a huge media campaign, right? We don't have commercials and things like that. So we really just like invite you in. And so I think we start there, right? The people that we know. And we just invite people that we know in and have a conversation with them, have a critical conversation with them and say, look, this is a place where we're just gathering. We're gonna talk. There's no agenda. There's no political aspiration. There is no control mechanism. There is no, spiritual agenda, right? None of that really. It's just a space where people can come together and share. And you don't have to share. You can listen, right? And that's okay too. That's the thing about no judgment and being a safe space, is that we don't have to force you to talk, and we don't have to force you to be there. And I think that if people are okay having a conversation one-on-one, then they're okay inviting that person they're having a conversation one-on-one with into a space where there might be a few others, and let it build from there. I also think it's really important to remember that, when our elders, who are now our sheps, our ancestors, put something in place that is so helpful to the community, that we don't let it die, right? And Dr. Mimms was involved with this work, and she wanted it to go forward. And when I've mentioned it to different elders in our community, they've said the same thing, that we should go forward with it. So, we have to, right? I don't want to let her legacy die that way, right? And that was a pivotal place. It was a special place, and maybe we've forgotten a little bit about it. And I want to remember her there too, and I want to remember the work that was important to her, and that was also important for us, right? Is to have those conversations, and over time, just having conversations, some of those old wounds can be dealt with. Right? We can begin to heal. We can begin to see people as people who we love again. We can begin to see people as people that we can help again. Some of the COVID stuff pulled us or pushed us into these boxes where we stopped seeing people as real anymore. It started feeling like it was a game of like Grand Theft Auto or something, and you could just respawn or something, right? And so we stopped having a real connection to people. And so, a huge goal of the conversation wasn't about resolution, it was just about interaction, where the interaction and the working around or interacting and moving through the people, by that happening, there was also a transference of some, empathy, some compassion, some care, right? And then you begin to see someone who's going through a struggle and you want to help them out, right? And or you want to share your struggle with them, right? I have lifelong friends that I met in those moments, and they're still, people that I've adopted as family members that call me and we work it out to this day. And they have authority to speak into my life. So they're the people that I want to have conversations with too. So we start there too. Bring the people that you love into these spaces and let's talk. Let's have something to drink or something, some juice or something and some water and talk, some coffee, whatever, something healthy and talk.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really great conversation, and I'm glad that we're having it. We're going to take a quick break, y'all, and we'll continue this critical conversation as soon as we get back. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae, a special for critical conversations.
Discover the new heartbeat of Seattle's waterfront at Coleman Commons, the Emerald City's premier event space where culture, creativity, and community come together. Looking to book a new space for your event? Visit ColemanCommons.com today.
The Washington State Fair starts Labor Day weekend, where once-a-year traditions meet new memories. Plus, kids get in free on opening weekend thanks to BECU. Do the Puyallup. Join us September 4th through 27th. Get tickets now at thefair.com.
Pride to me was more than just a celebration. It was an opportunity for folks to see the value in Black and brown communities, and above all else, belonging. So you see, community, that's what We Live in Color has always been about. For you to hear our hearts, see our minds, and above all else, see why Black media matters. Catch this and more on We Live in Color every Thursday on Converge media streaming platforms.
Welcome back, y'all, to The Day with Trae, a critical conversation special. Joining me for this special, we have Heru TchaasAmen here. And I'll just say before the break, you were talking about a place where people can just come and talk. And I remember when I first had my experience with critical conversations and going, wow, this is a space like no other, right? And it was very clear that it was curated with care, right? It was just clear as soon as you walk into the space, your first time, you're invited in a way that like, hey, you're family, right? It's real. You're laughing because the first time you were invited in, you might remember that. Go ahead, can you tell us the story?
Yeah, Dr. Mimms was funny. The first time I was at a critical conversations, she made me stand up. And she announced who I was, and basically have me, it's literally a circle, and I'm in the middle of the circle, and, started to, she's Dr. Mimms, and she started to flirt, and show me off like I was, something that somebody might want to know, and it was just very, very interesting to be, not knowing anyone in the room, and then suddenly everybody's looking at you, but not only are they looking at you, they are starting to learn how to appreciate you based off of her comments. Yeah. And that was, it was interesting for sure. But she was somebody I could flirt with on a regular basis, so I was safe there. I'm also, like it or not, or believe it or not, I'm also a person that likes to stick to myself and be to myself. And so she kicked the shell off my back so I couldn't hide anywhere, right? And so I was there, and I was known to be in community suddenly, and we're going to talk about those things and talk about what I know, talk about what I don't know, talk about what I'm learning, where I'm struggling, where I'm growing, all of those things. She was prolific, and she taught me so much. And it was also one of those conversations too where she announced, without asking me, or telling me she was going to do it, told me that I am responsible for taking care of the spiritual well-being of the Seattle metro area, I-5 area. And I was like, whoa, who are you to tell me that? And I had to go figure out my stuff, and I'm still trying to figure out my stuff. Like I tell y'all, some of the group all the time, I'm like, look, I got 3,000 things, and the list keeps getting longer and longer of things I'm working through. And some of those things I need to work through by having conversations with other people.
Yeah. When we talk about healing spaces, we talk about healing circles, healing groups, and doing, conversations intentionally to focus on healing. There's a collective form of healing that happens when you're in a safe space, when that space is curated with love and you feel it. And I want to just talk a little bit about that. We know the need is there, but there's some real chemical factors to that kind of community collective healing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that interaction with people that you love releases serotonin. It releases warmth and the good, hormones for your body. I'll speak about it in chi terms. We call it the chi field, and we intentionally build the chi field. We send energy, we send light, we send healing, we send good intentions, we send love, we send trust, openness, gongjing, gratitude, all of these things into the chi field. And we have a personal chi field, and we have a shared and collective chi field, and we get to come together in the chi fields and have conversations in spaces that are already seeded with the information that we need to grow, to heal, to expand, or to network. And so basically, we're just stepping into a chi field or a frequency pool or an energy pool that has the sustenance that we need to sustain our well-being. By refraining from being in those places that are really about healing, right? Without an agenda, without a string attached that says, hey, you're gonna have to come see me forever, and you're gonna be sick forever, you're gonna be broken forever, but people that are already seeing you completely well, and wanting you to be completely well and working from that perspective, or even just communicating from that perspective, it jumpstarts your healing, or your reaching your goals that much quicker.
The connection of the biological to the physical is real. I know just for myself, when I think about healing, I've had to do a lot of work in terms of balancing my life. I care so much about community and about the things that we're really trying to push for kind of collectively in community, that for many years I have been like, that is a high priority, it's a focus. And I recognize that it's still a focus of mine. Yet I also had to make more time for just like family time, because there's something really special about being with my children, my grandbaby, being with my cousins, my siblings, and not just, continuing the relationships we started as kids, in some cases, right? Like with my siblings or my cousins, but also deepening them as adults. I recognize that when you talk about serotonin being released and, there's good things that come from, your body biologically when you are in the presence of those who love you and those you love. There's this exchange that takes place.
Definitely. And
I would feel that exchange in the approach of critical conversations. And I think that as we talk about like how to bring that back and bringing it back, that's such a key element of it all, is the approach we take, by having a space that is, accessible for people, and it is of community. Because I think L.E.M.S, just the history of L.E.M.S had brought so much with it as well, where people were like, no, I trust this space. I know this space, right? Folks had additional connection to the space. And even if you didn't, when you stepped into the space, you're like, oh, okay, no, yeah, I can feel this is a space I could be in. So I think that you're absolutely right. And us being able to have real, I think, expressions of what we're experiencing internally is real. We talk a lot about this a lot in my workplace, and just people deal with a lot on their own, like it's hidden. It is hidden. And that hidden effect, it impacts us all.
For sure. It breaks us down. We talk about a positive social interaction, and we talk about stress here a lot, right? We talk about how the breath deals with stress and reduces stress-related issues. We say a lot that, cortisol, is increased in your bloodstream when you're under stressful situations or conditions, right? And the oxytocin that is released in your bloodstream during a positive, interaction with people literally reduces the cortisol levels, right? So it's very scientific, and it's very healing. So we're exchanging energy, we're exchanging information, we're changing our chemical balance in those moments, which are so profound as well. But when we isolate ourselves, there's studies that are out and around what abusers might do, and they tend to isolate people, right? We know that, if we're having mental anguish and spiritual anguish and things like that, when we isolate ourselves, that those issues get exacerbated, right? We know that if I need financial support, or if I need, I'm on a job hunt, that I have to network, and that means I have to be in front or interact with people. Right, so in order to heal, it's always something that is like I got to step outside of myself somehow. So isolation and those things that came through the COVID work, but also are kind of interwoven in our society, that you need to be independent. In the Black community, we're not even supposed to talk about our problems, right? Like, we're supposed to act like they don't exist, which is another issue. So we have to create and curate spaces where it's safe for us to, be in our mess, right? Maybe not at our best, but also get the love that we need, or find just a place of rest, right? Like, I want to restore myself, or I want to just stop worrying for 30 minutes or something. Like, I want somebody to show me that they care. Give me a hug. Sometimes in those spaces, it was a hug for me, right, that changed the dynamic. So yeah.
Yeah. This is a necessary conversation. I'm glad we're having it, and it brings to mind some of the stories Dr. Mimms would talk about in terms of creating this circle and curating it from the beginning. And she would say, "Oh, girl, if you saw how so-and-so used to show up in here, right? People showing up in steeped in their emotional responses, steeped in that the negative emotion or experience or feeling, and folks showing up in conflict with other folks who were there in the circle." And she would be like, "Work it out right now. Say what your piece is. You say what talk about it right now, right? Instead of holding it in and you trying to sit there because you don't want everybody in your business. No, talk about it right here, right?" It was an openness that really helped resolve conflict. So I want to talk about the nature of critical conversations as conflict resolution too.
For sure.
That is a part of this.
Definitely. When we have issues with each other, a lot of times we'll sit around and stew. We might start thinking certain things about other people that aren't even true because of the way that we feel about the situation. We don't have all the facts. We have a lot of trauma, perhaps, that we have migrated through during our lives that might be getting placed into this dynamic as well. And now we have a gulf that we don't even communicate, and that person doesn't communicate. They might not even know that they've done us wrong, right? Or they might not know that we feel like they've done us wrong, right? Or we, a lot of different things. And so without having the conversation, you don't know what the other person was working with, right? I think back to the way that I have, in my past, had challenges, right? And then I think about some of the things that I experienced as a young man that molded the way that I saw the world, that really impacted the way I responded in a situation that caused the challenge. From being, not having much money, from being, abused, from being abandoned at times, those types of things, right? So when those issues happen to you at critical moments, in your life, you know, you begin to develop habits around them, like survival habits. And then you take those survival habits and those patterns into other situations and cause harm. When it happens, it's not like you even knew that it happened. Somebody has to draw your attention to it. So that happens too. Like, oh, look, this hurt. And you know, I'm sorry can happen then, right? And not, oh, you know, that dude did it on purpose, right? Or this woman did it on purpose, or they, you know, hurt me on purpose, you know, or we just have the conversation and now we understand too that we're just not going to deal with each other,
Right.
We're going to keep it unprofessional. We're going to keep it on a high and by, and we can keep it pushing too, and that's okay. But we're not going to continue to do each other harm. I'm not going to send, you know, we have a law of Heru TchaasAmen that we talk about sometimes. I'm not going to envision you being harmed. I'm not going to will harm for you. I'm not going to hope harm for you. I'm going to hope the best for you, even if we're not working together in that life, right? And stuff. And hopefully you're doing the same for me. So we can continue to support the community. We have all been hurt. We have all been lost. We've all been broken. We've all been, I don't know, all of the things, right? And so none of us is without painful experiences, and none of us is without causing painful experiences. And so we also need to understand how to have those conversations with dignity, right? And respect, and with empathy, right? And understand that, oh, you hurt me. I understand that, you know, that happened and stuff. And I understand that perhaps you didn't mean to do it, but it hurt, right? And perhaps we can find a way to work through it. And when those people are there, right, we can get some feedback from other people too, and maybe how they have handled situations in their past, which can be appropriate also. You know, how do we heal?
Yeah. You know, that's something that I appreciated. It's like it was because there was no agenda and because it was this open forum, it allowed for, you know, folks to share best practices. Well, here's how I have dealt with that without trying to be prescriptive to another person, which I think was so successful in that space. Because it's just simply sharing. It's not you need to do this and you need to do that and you over here need to do this and that. That didn't occur there. And if someone tried to go there, Dr. Mimms would stop them, right? No, that's not how we use this space, right? And so the reinforcement of the space was always present when necessary. It didn't matter how many people were there or how little people were there. The reinforcement was always there in terms of this is what this space is. Right. So it really helped people understand, even when they were coming with isms, schisms, whatever, personal or against this person or this one, whatever it was, the reminder of what the space was always present, which really helped people. I saw it. I saw people relax their shoulders, breathe through their nose, take a beat, remind themselves of the community space they're in, because that reminder was clear. Yeah. So there's definitely some strategies around it. One other thing I really want to say is how much I enjoyed learning about other people and their personalities and their quirks and their, right? Like, come on now, like that was a space where it was like the one place for some folks, that's where I would see them, right? Every month I'd see them there. And I may not see them much else in other places or have a personal connection to them where I'm experiencing them, you know, having a meal together or, you know, being in other spaces. And so I really appreciated the breadth of the different perspectives that our community members had. And that space allowed you to get to know one another, like to get to learn about one another in a way where you did become familiar. So if I see you in another space, it's all good. What's up? Give me love, right? Those experiences were real. And as you were talking about being introduced to the space and coming into the space, a lot of community members began to know who you were through that space.
Yeah, that's true, for sure. People learned who I was. I was thinking about some things as you were talking. You took me down memory lane, and I started to remember I started like, you know, my work around, or, you know, my self-healing journey that I'm still on. I started that work, you know, just by myself. I started studying some books. I realized I had some issues, and I started studying some books and trying to find the answers to them, and then trying to find the people that had the information and that taught the books and all of that stuff. And I just went on this deep dive, but I was doing it by myself, and I felt this. I felt alone. And I felt alone, I realized, for a very long time. I was alone and I felt lonely. I felt there was no one to talk to. And inside, I was frustrated about it. I felt I didn't have community, I didn't have family, I didn't have like the right group of people around me that I could use as a sounding board, I could share with, that I could grow with, that would teach me things too. I didn't have those people. And I remember telling someone once, I was just like, I'm gonna go find my family. I gotta go find my community, I gotta find my family. Like an old school explorer, you know what I mean? With all of my stuff on my back, I started looking and walked into this space and realized that there were people like a family, like with quirks and, the funky uncles and the aunties that kiss you too hard, hug you too tough and all of that. The one that's always in your business, the one that always gives you something to eat, the one that always asks you if you're doing okay, are you getting enough rest, sweetie? Those people that would check in, on you, those people came in my life from there. And I met a mentor, I met a teacher, I met a great grandmother figure who I could literally lay my head on her lap, when I wanted to rest, who would tell me to go out to the house where nobody is and go sit down and just be by yourself because you need some time alone now because you're spending too much time with community. Those types of things, right? To tell me when to turn up and when to turn down. So, I got to find a family. Got to find friends, people I was looking for, people that taught me so much, right? And people, when I see them in community, I hug on them because of those conversations, those critical conversations that we had in the past. And I love them, to this day. And what was interesting about it, too, is it felt like they were people I'd known my whole life. Yeah. It felt like not even this whole life, but my whole lifetimes, that I just found my family again after traveling generations and crossing seas and oceans of time. And it was good, right? It was good. They're talented and brilliant and insightful and wise and goofy and quirky, but they're good people.
Good people.
Right.
Yeah, this is absolutely such a perfect time to be bringing it back. Y'all, we're going to take one more short break. We'll be right back after this. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae, a critical conversation special.
Our culture is a living inheritance, and every new generation becomes a guardian of that legacy. We keep Black heritage alive every time we gather in fellowship and every time we step into our rhythms. With every story we showcase, with every memory we preserve, with every flavor of home we recreate, and with every game we play. Whenever we celebrate us, somehow we are holding hands and planting seeds all at once. We know how to make a moment. And you know what? We should do it again. Sunday, August 23rd, pull up to T-Mobile Park for Seattle Mariners African American Heritage Day. Let's show some love for our ancestors, the beloved Seattle Steelheads, and let's add some new memories of us to the books while we're at it.
Welcome back, y'all, to The Day with Trae, a critical conversation special. Joining me for this special has been Heru TchaasAmen. This is a real pleasure, Heru. And as we, kind of wrap up this incredible critical conversation here, the beautiful forum that was Critical Conversations, it does need to be brought back in community. It can look like a lot of things, but you talk specifically about in-person space again and the need for that. Tell us more.
Yeah, I want to see and interact with people, right, away from a screen. Really, I want to be able to see body language, and make eye contact again. I want to be able to physically see that you're all right. Sometimes we can hide behind a screen, or we can keep distance behind a screen. But I don't want to be in a box forever, right? and I want to be in space. But I don't want to be necessarily in spaces that are always highly charged, or spaces that are really loud where you can't get to have a real conversation. I want almost like a lounge type feel. I want to be able to sit back and have conversations with the people that I enjoy, a reunion of sorts. So, what I look forward to, and we brought up L.E.M.S several times, so I'm thinking about that now and looking forward to, finding space and community that makes sense to have these conversations publicly, right? We'll start, by word of mouth and just begin to share, where and when and how, and you'll see notifications pop up on social media if you're on it, if I'm on it. But you also, if you know me, know the circles, or know to look to the sites, HeruHills.com. You'll be able to find some more information or get on a list, and we'll set up a mailing list as well so we can communicate out to the people. But we got to be in public. Healing happens across airwaves for sure. Wisdom gets transferred across, a screen, most definitely, right? But a hug, it's kind of difficult to like literally feel a hug from across a monitor, and I'm a hugger, so the conversations for me were really special for that. We do have some other places that we can host. So we'll pop up to it. I don't necessarily look at it as saying, okay, we're always going to be at one spot.
Yeah.
I know transportation is an issue. I also understand the fact that we might have to look at things and go, how do we host this, in a multifaceted format? So have a digital component. But luckily, because of COVID, I got to experience how to do that well. So we can have a diverse delivery where people can be on screen and be heard, and people can be in person and be heard, and we'll do work to make that happen. But yeah, just small conversational spaces popping up, wherever people are.
Yeah, this is important. When I think about the next steps, I really get excited for the connection again, for people to be together again in space, and for it to really resonate with people that this is important and necessary in our community, and creating it as a pillar of community. Like it has always been a pillar. How do we bring that pillar back and make it deeply rooted in community so that, as Dr. Mimms had it, it was intergenerational, right? It wasn't just about adults. And it's important for our young folks to know that too. Yeah. This is a space for them. I remember when my son, Johnny, was first introduced to the circle, and he was probably 7, and he was like, oh, what? I get to talk? And Dr. Mimms said, yeah, tell us who you are, what you like, what you about,
Everybody.
What are your dreams? And he was so excited. He was so excited to share because everyone was quiet, paying attention to him. And he felt like, oh, wait, everybody cares about what I'm saying right now. And he was, again, like everyone, received with so much love. And it was such an anchor for him in terms of like, whoa, this is what this community stuff is like. An early memory for him. And so powerful. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. I want to thank you for joining me as we look for these moments of, coming together as community. Yeah. Critical Conversations is one of those spaces where it really happens.
Definitely. I remember Johnny speaking, and Johnny has thrived in the spotlight. I've seen him in plays, acts on stage, and things like that. He's a wonderful thespian, talented young man who, learned how to be on stage there, which is perfect. It's a perfect, relationship builder. Dr. Mimms did such great work, and I talked to, Don Mason the other day around this same topic, and she says, Heru, we just got to do it. It has to be done. It's not being done, so let's do it and make it done. So I was, okay, well, she talks. So okay, well, I guess. And I was like, well, who's going to do it? And she looked at me like, well, you brought it up, kind of energy. Okay, I'll do it. So that's kind of where we are. But yeah, having those conversations where people can just be seen. A lot of times we might not have the answer, the cure, right? But you need to be seen. We need to lay eyes on you. And my grandma used to call me up from time to time and say, once you get over here, boy, I need to lay eyes on you, right? And the same thing for me with a critical conversation. I'm gonna lay eyes on my people. I've missed my family, and hopefully they've missed me, so I would love to just hear how people are doing and start having some groups and communities where we can just experience one another in love. Yeah.
Love is the foundation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for having a conversation with me. The first of many. Yeah. And yeah, I look forward to people and yeah, look for these conversations continuing.
That's right. Wow, y'all. I mean, we've said a lot in this special, but what I really want you to walk away with is this notion of a pillar in community as critical conversations has been and will be again. I'm so grateful to Heru TchaasAmen for having this conversation, but previous conversations that really prompted this one to say, we need to bring this back. There is something missing in our community. And for those of you who have experienced critical conversations and you're like, oh my goodness, it's coming back, trust me, just hit me up if you're trying to figure out where these conversations are happening. You can hit me up on Instagram at Trae Holiday. Or, you can also email me here, Trae at whereweconverge.com. We want to make sure that these spaces are accessible for those of you who need them. And if you're someone who is like, I've never gone, I would love to be able to participate. Please hit me up. We want to make sure you are added to this growing list of community members who know this space, have loved this space, and are looking forward to it returning. Thank you so much for watching, y'all. I'm excited that we are able to introduce some of you to critical conversations and to bring the conversation back to those of you who have loved it for a very long time. Peace and blessings. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.